We're good on the stream.
Awesome. Welcome everybody, HackFS hackers, and looks like we got a couple sponsors in here as well. So everybody who's in HackFS, welcome to this Piñata workshop. We've got a couple people from the Piñata team here. They're going to be going over how to use HackFS in your project, some of the prizes, and just generally what Piñata is. So welcome Kyle and Matt. We really appreciate you guys spending some time with us, helping hackers out. It's going to be a great session. Before we start, as always, and I'm sure the people on this call, if you were here for any of the other sessions, I'm going to be repeating information, but for anybody that was not here earlier, today is the last day to stake. This is our final requirement for anybody who is hacking for the next 30 days. We want to make sure people get that done before the cutoff, because we will start pruning the slack and removing people from the event. We just want to make sure people are going to be active and engaged throughout the next few weeks. Today we have 2 more events after this, office hours. These are going to be a little bit more intimate and slow-moving sessions where you can just chat with the team. If you've already started working on things, you can bring technical issues or any blockers that you ran into, or just ask them specifically which ideas they think might be good. Just get general feedback on what you're working on. So that would be at 2 p.m. Eastern. There's the textile office hours, and then later, a few hours after at 5 p.m. Eastern, Unstoppable Domains has their office hours. So definitely, if you're looking to integrate those sponsors, you want to show up to those, ask your questions, and get help. I think that's all the logistics out of the way. Before I turn it over to Kyle and Matt, let's think. All right, if you want to play this game, hackers and anybody here, let's, if you have a drink on your desk, how about this? If you have a drink on your desk, show me what you got. I'm drinking regular old water. It looks like coffee and tea are going to take this. Water. Andrew, is that coffee? All right, water loses this round. Water's good. You got to stay hydrated. I'm gonna recruit some more water folks for the next round. All right, enough of the games. Kyle, Matt, I'll let you guys start off what you're gonna present.
Awesome. Thanks for having us in here. Let me share my screen here. Everybody got that?
Yes.
Good to go. Cool. All right. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We are Piñata at piñata.cloud, and today we're going to talk about the broken token. It's a topic we've talked about previously, but this time we're going to do it in a little bit different way. And going through it, structure of the talk, just going to intro ourselves, let you know who Matt and I are, the team behind Piñata, and then we're going to actually do a walkthrough of how you can use us, use our API and integrate us into your application that you're doing for HackFS. And then we're actually going to jump into things and talk about the problem that is the broken token itself. So to start, I'm Kyle Tut. This is usually my Piñata that you'll see around online. If you ever see that, that's me. A little bit about me. I've been in the blockchain space for about 3 years, doing blockchain applications. Spent a lot of time actually at hackathons. So hackathons are near and dear to my heart. We'll have Matt intro himself as well.
Hey everybody, Matt here. Like Kyle, also been around the blockchain space for about 3 years now, and also got my start in the hackathon space at, I think, ETH Waterloo was the first one that we participated at. Piñata was born out of hackathons, and we like to think of ourselves as a tool built for hackers at these types of hackathons. So excited to give you all a tour.
Yeah, in fact, we even have an original photo of the original ETH Waterloo. In the right-hand corner there, you can see Matt on stage. He was one of the winning teams. Yeah, so we've spent a bunch of time at these hackathons, and actually Pinata was actually formed at these hackathons. So spent time at ETH Denver, ETH Waterloo, and then the original ETH Berlin when it was, I believe, under the ETHGlobal banner, is actually where we ended up winning with the original idea of Piñata all the way back in 2018 now. So to us, hackathons are extremely important, and you can actually end up building a company or an application out of these hackathons and take them and move them forward. At our core, Piñata is a pinning service for the IPFS network. We're just a peer pinning service. You take content, you take data, and then you will end up pinning that onto our nodes for a fee. Pretty simple, not too complex to understand. The things that set us apart, or why you would use Piñata, is that we're extremely easy. So we've done a lot of work to make sure it is as easy as possible to pin content on IPFS, including our easy to use API and simple UI that we have to upload and manage your pins. We also focus a lot on making sure that Piñata is fast. This was a bigger thing back in the day, but with updates constantly coming to the IPFS network, things are always improving and getting faster, but we try to make sure that our nodes are highly connected to other nodes and prioritizing infrastructure decisions that increase speed. And then finally, we are always online. So if you're running your own IPFS nodes, maybe on your desktop or something like that, it's not always online. You can rely on us and make sure that your content is actually reachable on the IPFS network. Cool. So who uses us? Anybody and everybody, essentially, from the decentralized web. Because we came out of the Ethereum space originally and spent a lot of time at ETHGlobal hackathons and things like that, we do have a lot of blockchain applications that are using us to handle and manage their off-chain data. And with a subset inside of that is things like NFTs or non-fungible tokens. They typically, whether it's being used for digital creators or gamers or whatever they're creating that is represented by that NFT, they typically end up storing that data on Piñata. And then just like regular websites, decentralized applications, things that aren't actually attached to a blockchain necessarily, we have a bunch of users or developers that build those on top of us as well. So cool. Now I will let Matt kind of take us through and give us a run through of Piñata and the things you can do with it.
Alrighty. I will start the screen share. Give me a second. Perfect. All right. So if you go to pinata.cloud, this will take you to our homepage. And as it says here, we like to think of ourselves as the easiest way to use IPFS. So for those of you that are new to Piñata, you can come here and sign up. Now I already have an account, so I'm just going to log in with that. But if you do sign up, you'll get an email in your inbox to verify the email. Click that, and then once you do, you'll be able to start paying to Piñata essentially right away. So when you first log in, you'll get taken to our documentation page, and everything I'm going to show here today is it has an API endpoint that you can hit, but a lot of what I'll be showing you will be demoed through our front-end GUI for kind of ease of demoing purposes. But the main things to keep in mind are you'll get a Piñata API key, and then you'll get a secret API key. And when you pin to Piñata, you'll just include both of those along with your API requests. And that's how you authenticate with your system. And then also, for those of you that use JavaScript, we do have an SDK that you can utilize in your projects. And that's up on GitHub. So a lot of different options for you there. We do include a lot of JavaScript examples all throughout the documentation. Scrolling a little fast here, but we like to think they're pretty well documented, but if you do have any improvements or suggestions for them, feel free to hit us up, and we're always happy to improve them. With that, I will start off with the Piñata upload page, which you can reach up here in our navigation bar. So to start off with, we will come in here and we will go to our documents and find this Piñata image. And then we will upload it to Piñata. Pretty quick upload process. And then once that uploads, you can come in here and view it in the Pin Explorer. So this is kind of our easy way to find basically, anything you want to have pinned on the Piñata service. These are previous items that we've pinned. You'll see the sizes of those objects. You'll see the date they've been pinned and their status. And then if you click on the object itself, you will be taken to our gateway, which will display the image if it is possible to display it there. Now, you can also upload directories if you want to as well. Or you can do what's called a preserve file name option here. So let's say that you have a file that you don't, it's not like an image, it's not typically displayed in the gateway. You can come in here and click this wrap with directory option, and you can upload it. And again, it'll preserve this file name on the IPFS gateway. Little kind of easier way to work with custom file names if you're doing something like, say, working with crypto voxels or any of the other unique file names in the decentralized space. Okay. And then lastly, also you can upload directories. Say if you want to upload a website, that is something that a lot of people are doing with IPFS right now. And then this is actually the last one you can use to upload your content. You can also do what's called pinning by hash. So let's say that you're running your own IPFS nodes, and for whatever reason, whether it's redundancy or you want to use Piñata as a speed layer to make sure that your customers can get your content faster, you can actually grab your content's hash, or CID as it's also referred to as, and you can put it into our pin by hash tool. And then we can say, this is going to be a picture of a parrot. And you'll see here, it'll show you the status. It quickly found that item. It was already on the network, on a different node on the IPFS network. And we can come in here, and again, we can view it on our gateway. And there's our image that we grabbed from the IPFS network. It was already existing out there. And then what we did is Piñata's nodes, they took that hash, they went and searched for this file, and then they retrieved it and stored it on our own servers. For kind of faster retrieval is what a lot of people are using that capability for as well. Okay, so let's say that you have an image that you want to remove. Let's say we no longer want this parrot to be stored on Piñata. You don't want to be charged for it anymore. We can come in here and simply remove the pin, and that's now removed from your account, and you're no longer being charged for that. You get charged per gigabyte per month on Piñata. So, and we're prorating it down to the millisecond. So as soon as you unpin it, charging stops. Okay, we also have this other cool feature in Piñata, which is called our metadata functionality. So the file we have here is this testing voxel file. You can come in here and you can include a custom key. So we'll say like file type, or we can say application, and we can add the value here, and we can say this is a crypto voxels file. We can add that in here and save that. So now this voxel file here, if you ever want to go at a later point in time and say, come to this pin list functionality here, this data endpoint, you can come in here and you can query on metadata. And that'll allow you to basically kind of sort and index your files on the Pinata system so you can easily find your IPFS files based on those custom key values that you provide to us. You can upload those via the API or manage them via the Pin Explorer like I did show here. So let's say we can add up to 10 of them here. And if you want to, you can always delete metadata or alter any of the metadata tags as you see fit. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to go over is what we call our regions and replications functionality. So we talk a little bit about this in our documentation, but as we always like to say, more is always better. So Pinata lets you replicate your content on multiple nodes and multiple regions. By default, you're going to have one node that's pinning your content, and that'll be the node that's closest to where you originally signed up for your Pinata account. We have nodes that are based in New York City and in Frankfurt. But let's say that you're in Frankfurt, but your customer base is randomly mostly in the United States. You may want to change your storage location to a different city. So I guess let's come in here and let's change where our file is being pinned at. And you'll see it's in the process of replicating to New York City. And if we give it a little bit of time here, give it about 10 seconds is normally kind of what it takes to replicate across the world. And you should see it update. And now it is in New York City. So what we do is we allow our customers to kind of locate their content closest to where their customers are located at. And the main reasons for this are speed and kind of reliability as well. So speed works in two areas. There's speed of retrieval, and then there's speed of discovery. So the more nodes that are hosting your content on the IPFS network, the faster the content's going to be found. And then the location of where those nodes are at is going to be how fast that content is delivered once it's actually found. So you get a little bit of a custom kind of build your own CDN type ability with Pinata that a lot of our customers are utilizing to best suit their needs. On the account level side, you can manage this. When you upload your content, you can choose a default pinning policy. And this is what's going to take place for all of your pins. By default, you can custom include a pinning policy on a per content basis, or you can have it fall back to the default account level policy that takes kind of as a default setting for all of your pins that don't include that in the request. And that is pretty much Pinata for you. You can go to your account page and view your usage, change your payment method, your password, your API secret. But yeah, that's pretty much Pinata as a whole. And I will let Kyle take it from here again.
Hey, Matt, in the chat, you can see Karate had a question.
Okay.
Do you
yes,
go through and
I will start reading these questions from the top. Okay. Simon asks, or Alex Simon asks, is it possible to share data from my IPFS cluster to Pinata? So you'll have to use the pin by hash functionality that I talked about here earlier. So you'll basically just take the hashes, or the CIDs as they're also known as, and you will, I guess I'm not sharing my screen anymore, but yes, it is the pin by hash functionality. You'll give those to us, and then we'll go grab those from your IPFS cluster. So Karate asks, are there any free HackFS Pinata credits for new signups? Yep, like Kyle said, we do have 1 GB free for anybody that wants to utilize Pinata and is just trying them out. Above that, you can just add in a credit card, and it's 15 cents per gigabyte, not too much. And then Alex says 1 GB per email to anyone. Yes, that is correct. And then, how do you protect against a Sybil attack? So we have a few kind of proprietary things behind the scenes. I'm not going to discuss those publicly, so we don't want them to be kind of gamified. But we do have a lot of protections behind the scenes to kind of prevent against this. And then how to make my IPFS cluster an official IPFS gateway. So the files from my cluster are available at IPFS.io. So the IPFS.io site is like, it's just a gateway run by Protocol Labs. There's a lot of gateways that are run by community members. Piñata is one of those as well. Cloudflare is one. Most kind of prominent IPFS community members are going to be running their own gateway if they have a product in the IPFS space. And the cool thing about IPFS is as long as your files are on a node that's accessible to the rest of the network, or that's well connected, those files are going to be accessible on any IPFS gateway. And they're going to be, you just put that hash there behind the gateway URL, and you can access it anywhere. That's kind of like one of the decentralized cool features about IPFS. In terms of getting your content to be accessible quickly, that's actually kind of what Piñata is used a lot for. Piñata will run, or you will run your own, say like IPFS cluster or your own IPFS nodes, and you'll have your content pinned on your own servers for, you know, backup sake or for redundancy sake. And then you can send your files to Piñata, and we're pretty well connected with the rest of the network. Like Kyle said, we really prioritize that. So if your files are pinned on Piñata, chances are it's going to get found very, very quickly on any of the rest of the IPFS network gateways. And then the last question is, Karate asks, did you say we can choose the nodes based upon metadata? So for example, I could name / tag my files per region. I think I understand your question. We do have a metadata functionality, and that's basically just kind of an internal indexing service that Piñata provides for our users. That metadata is stored on our own internal servers. It's not actually stored on IPFS anywhere. It's purely used so that you can kind of sort and classify your files on the Piñata system. It doesn't actually affect anything on the IPFS network or how your content is stored. So your hash will stay the same. But in terms of regions and replications, you can go into your account, or you can provide what's called a pin policy for your specific pieces of content, and you can choose where your content is pinned at, either in New York City or in Frankfurt, are our two public regions that we have available. If you are a more enterprise user and you want a custom region set up for you, or you want like a private IPFS network that's managed through Piñata's kind of whole service, that is something that we can set up for you. But yeah, New York City and Frankfurt are the two ones we have publicly available. And you can choose either per object or at an account level where your content resides. And then, yep, Simon, Kyle answered your question there in the chat. And then pay with crypto option. Right now, we are a credit card based company. We found that's easier for most of our users right now. We are always exploring pay by crypto, but so far a lot of people have been requesting mainly credit cards. So that's kind of what we focused on. That's not to say that it won't arrive in the future though. So, you know, keep your ears open. And I'm gonna take a drink of water now because I've been talking a lot. I'll let Kyle take it from here.
Cool. Yeah. Any other questions anybody wants answered before jumping back into it? No? Cool. I'll share my screen then. All right. Screen is shared. So let's jump into what the broken token is. So I did a talk recently that was kind of similar to this, where I was talking about actually the Mona Lisa, and I think it's somewhere out on YouTube, and you can check it out. But with this talk, generally going to talk about similar things, but with just a little bit different context as we've learned from our users and just had more experience with it. So this talk basically relates to NFTs, but is a general problem in the blockchain space. The reason that we like to focus on NFTs is because they are so good at managing kind of the rights or the ownership to digital assets, files, or data, specifically when it's actually stored on something like Piñata. So here's the problem. Let's say you're a developer trying to build something for the HackFS hackathon, like many of you sitting here listening to this talk right now. Most likely, you might be using a blockchain, maybe something like Ethereum, that has a bunch of cool tools already built to make your dApp relatively easy to spin up. However, you probably already know that blockchains are really quite bad at storing more than a couple of kilobytes of data on chain. They're actually quite bad at storing data on them. And really, blockchains are there to answer kind of this simple question of, do I own or have the right to something? Yes or no? And the standard at this point is to store as much data, what's considered off-chain, as possible to save on those gas fees and just make it so your application can actually run without being extremely expensive. So what we have is kind of this concept of off-chain storage. The problem is that off-chain storage kind of brings with it a bunch of other problems. So first and foremost, the security of the blockchain pretty much goes out the window. Obviously, if you're not putting the data on the blockchain, you're basically losing all of the benefits of it. And currently, most apps are actually using resorting to storing their data on traditional Web 2 kind of infrastructure, such as S3 or the like. But this opens up new problems about the openness of the data and then actually the security of your dApp's data underneath. And so we like to talk about this major concept within IPFS all the time about storing data on something like S3 just gives you a URL. And URLs are actually quite bad at actually securing the data behind them. And so what I mean by that is that URLs allow you to change the data the URL is referencing while maintaining the same link. And this becomes a massive liability as it relates to blockchain applications. So you can see here using an NFT, if you were to mint an NFT on Ethereum or another blockchain, and actually put a link within that NFT that represents an asset, let's say it's this grayscale Piñata image, what you can see is that you can actually change out the image, and the grayscale Piñata image can actually turn into the missing Piñata image. And so this becomes a massive kind of liability or security risk for the data that's supposed to be represented by that NFT. And so enters IPFS. In my humble opinion, IPFS is like the peanut butter to blockchain's jelly. This is because IPFS can also kind of be considered a global computer. It's just that it's focused on the storage part. And the key difference between IPFS and other storage methods is that IPFS stores data based on the content itself, also known as content addressable data. And this is versus a URL where it's based on where it's actually stored. And so IPFS stores data based on the file, and then you get something called the CID, or the content identifier. And this means that if the data behind the NFT ever changes, the CID actually won't match, and you can prove it. So when Matt was going through and kind of giving us a rundown of Piñata, and you're in the pin explorer, you saw all of those hashes, and all of those hashes represent a file, and those hashes are unique, or those CIDs are unique to the file themselves. And so what that does is, as you can see on the slide here, when the NFT actually has the link there that's referencing the grayscale Piñata, and then you tried to change the image behind it, you actually end up getting a different CID. And so what this does is protect you against data changing behind the scenes on you. And so looking at it again, pretty simple. With a URL that references a file, you can run into this problem where the data underneath can be swapped out. But most of our users today are using NFTs and us in general for things like gaming assets or fairly low risk data. So, in this instance, what's the harm of just swapping out an image? It's not, a total end of the world kind of thing. But what if the data was actually more expensive? What if that NFT represented a file or data set that is extremely valuable and isn't just, an image of something? These could be things like records or representations of physical assets that could be worth quite a bit of money. And the data behind it could be corrupted, or you had no way to actually access it. So like things like this are the things that we talk about a lot, and we have this conversation with the blockchain community and the IPFS community a lot, stressing the importance of actually securing that data behind the blockchain or the NFT itself. And so the kind of example I want to use here is actually kind of about data transfer. And so if you could imagine you created, you're creating a aircraft engine, let's say. And while you're doing that in these new factories where you're creating these aircraft engines, you're generating a lot of data about that engine as you're manufacturing it, right? So you might have IoT data with sensors that are pulling in data that precisely measures fit and finish on the engine, or maybe you have temperature controls, any kind of data you can kind of think of. This is important data to keep precise, just to make sure that the engine is actually being made correctly. Now that engine needs to actually be transferred to another factory to be finished, right? It might be even a totally different company that's receiving this engine, going through a different supply chain or something like that. And to complete the build, they need that IoT data that the first factory was creating. But there's this problem where you don't actually know if the data is correct. If that data were to be corrupted in any way, it could create millions of dollars in damages to this aircraft engine, right? With traditional infrastructure and data handoffs, this data could, be corrupted by the engineer that is trying to manage it, or it could be, maliciously corrupted, or, there's kind of a bunch of scenarios you can envision where all of this important IoT data was corrupted and then transferred, to the next factory with all these problems in it. And so it kind of becomes like a high stakes version of the telephone game. But with NFTs and IPFS links, this scenario could actually be prevented. So the original factory could simply just transfer the IoT data to the second factory with the relevant CIDs and guarantee, or the hashes of the data, and guarantee that nothing has been lost or corrupted in the process. So we really kind of think this is the future of data transfer, is making sure that when you are transferring data, it's based on those CIDs themselves. And so, to us, creating CIDs is the most important thing that you could possibly do to secure and ensure that your data is what it's supposed to be. So what's the plan to make this work? You as a developer will use Pinata in place of something like S3 to pin and create that CID hash on the IPFS network. Now there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do this, but this is the easiest way. And if you play with our API after this, you'll understand how easy it can be to actually create that CID on Piñata. Then you simply take that CID and associate it with an NFT, or maybe even more simple, you timestamp it on chain, or you could even just track these CIDs in a simple database. But at this point, you've created a great way to manage data rights with the NFT on chain, and then you have that secured data off chain. using Piñata and the IPFS network. And if your hack, becomes something more like CryptoKitties did back in the day, or with the first ETH Waterloo, or the way Matt and ours did with Piñata at ETH Berlin, you'll be able to scale up with that data sitting on Piñata. So next steps, obviously, sign up for Piñata if you haven't already. I promise it'll make your application easier to build. And then second, I'd check out some of our blogs and videos. So we have a ton of blogs and content out there, talking about NFTs, crypto voxels, had large pieces of data, so it was a relevant kind of thing. But if you abstract some of these concepts to whatever you want to build, it'll make a lot of sense for you. Who is responsible for NFT data? We have discussions around dedicated IPFS networks, how to handle scalability within IPFS. Matt has a bunch of great talks out there on YouTube and on the IPFS channel that you can watch as well, that will just give you a great perspective. We've spent a lot of time, obviously, working in IPFS and have ran into a lot of problems. So we'd love to be able to kind of help you out there. And we have spent a lot of time building in the decentralized web space outside of just creating Piñata. We built blockchain applications back in the day. So to make it easy on yourself and avoid all the mistakes that Matt and I have made, building dapps at ETHGlobal and beyond, just check out Piñata. And to make that easier, we have some API prizes. We have 4 of them, $250 each. We'd love to help make it easy to manage your pins on IPFS. And these will go to the best implementation of our API to pin their app data on IPFS. As old hackers that Matt and I were, we would recommend doing this. It's pretty easy to, if you're using IPFS, you may as well use us and get that easy $250 as you're hacking. So happy pinning. And if there are any questions or anything like that, would love to go from there.
Any questions? Let me double check the YouTube chat to see if there's anything there. Oh, it looks pretty clear. Oh, one just popped up.
Matt, do you want to cover this? I'll cover the how long has Piñata been running. So we've been operating since late 2018. We've been running Piñata, so almost, I guess, over 2 years, or almost 2 years now.
Cool. Yeah, so, oh, yep, Joshua, it seems like he answered your own question. Yeah, and for clarification there, you can have a lot of pins. It's just one like replication per free account. So there's a lot more. You can get a lot of pins on a free account as long as it's under a gigabyte. Small comparison with other pinning services. Really, I mean, it just kind of comes down to what you're looking for. Some services are focused more around like a bucket style, kind of S3 style of implementation. Some are focused more around kind of like those deep nitty gritty things you want to do with IPFS. We're really focused on just making things easy and fast and stable. That's kind of those 3 things that we've talked about early on in the talk. Those are our priorities. We've kind of intentionally chosen to do less, but what we do, we want to be really good at it. So I would say that's kind of a big comparison.
Yeah, when we're looking at adding features and things like that, we take a lot of time to make sure we have a lot of users who agree that it actually needs that feature built out, and we want to make sure that it's actually valuable to you and not end up cluttering the experience of actually using Piñata. So we try to keep it as simple as possible to use. And then, yeah, does it cost more to pin in more locations? Yeah, Matt already kind of touched on that. Any other questions? Awesome. Yeah, you guys can obviously reach out to us in Slack and talk with us. And we'd be happy to help you with any questions you have. We have our own Slack. Obviously, you can join that one as well, and have a ton of conversations in there with our users and working through any problems that they might have.
Awesome. This was great. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Like you said, meet them in the Slack just after that. And I'm sure if you couldn't think of a question now, you'll encounter one later when you try to build on Pinata. They'll be happy to answer. All right, last minute question, sneaking in just under the wire. Nice. All right, we're gonna wrap here. We have 2 more sessions today, one for textile and a little bit later for unstoppable domains. Yep. Maybe I'll see you there. If not, we'll see you in Slack. We just announced a new thing. Check out the Showcase channel. We are featuring hackers in a Filecoin blog post. If you want to write a little bit about what inspires you to join HackFS, the event, and just generally why you care about building with Web3, decentralized technologies. So be sure to check in there and drop a message. And then the other thing we're doing is if you're out and about in your city, snap a quick video with the HackFS word somewhere in the video, and then we're going to compile all these hacker videos because we've got people from all around the world. So the idea is that we want to celebrate that. So just snap a quick video if you feel inclined. Again, these are not required, but we figured it'd be a fun thing to have at the end of the event. People working in all different spaces, different cities all around the world. It could be just you, it could be your team. Yeah, those are the 2 things we just announced. So check out the HackFS Showcase channel for those. I think that's it. Thanks again, everybody.
Awesome.
See ya.